Hello and welcome to Monday's edition of Cracking the Cryptic. And today's puzzle, you can see it on the screen, is another by Lucy Audrin, who you may recall did an incredible thermo Sudoku a couple of weeks ago that we featured called Spider and Fly. Well, this one's called Four Zizzers, for obvious reasons, I hope, and I have it on good authority. This is even better than the Spider and Fly puzzle. So, as usual, we're in for an absolute treat. Now, before we kick off, we are so close to 3,333 patrons over on Patreon. I think we're on 3,330 at the moment. So the moment we get those extra 3 patrons, we will release Reverend's Puzzle Hunt there. So keep an eye on your inboxes if you are a patron of the channel, because there's a puzzle hunt coming your way very, very soon. It's a lot of fun. It's a mixture of cryptography, logic puzzles, and Sudoku, and yeah, if we receive correct solutions, at least in the next couple of weeks, I will read out the names of the correct solvers. So do give it a go. As I say, it's definitely worth your time. Oh, and if anybody is trying it and having trouble with it, I definitely recommend going over to the Discord server, the Cracking the Cryptic Discord server. You'll find a link to it under this video. Not only are there a lot of incredibly clever people there, they're a good bunch, and I'm sure they'll give you a hint or two. And even, I think Reverend himself is very often there, so you may even get a hint from the author of the hunt himself. This has been an interesting day, by the way, for Cracking the Cryptic. We were in one of the biggest Swedish newspapers this morning. They had an article on the Miracle Sudoku, and thanks so much to those of you who pointed us in that direction. It was in Aftonbladet. I think, well, I'm probably saying that incorrectly, but that's what it looks like to me. I've put a link to it on our Twitter feed, so any of you who speak Swedish can go over there and read about it. Our Twitter feed is @CrypticCracking, and a big thanks actually to Joel Einarsson, who sent me a translation of the article, which is above and beyond the call. Very grateful to Joel for that. And most amused as well. Apparently, the article described Cracking the Cryptic, and get this, it described us as pornography for the soul. Not words I ever thought we'd be associated with, but when I think about it, it's quite right. Also, I want to give a shout out to Charlotte Stang in California. Charlotte, thank you so much for the email you sent us this morning. Both Mark and I were really touched by it. Charlotte sent us a sort of a draft New York Times style recommendation article, and yeah, as I say, we were really moved to hear some of the comments therein. So Charlotte, thank you very much. You made our day. Now I want to just go back to yesterday's puzzle quickly, if you don't mind, because there were some comments. So spoiler alert, if you haven't done yesterday's puzzle, 2 things, you really, really must do it. It is absolutely incredible, with one of the most amazing denouements you will ever see in a puzzle. And it's by Robert Volmet, and what an idea. Anyway, I'm about to show the finale, so look away now for 30 seconds if you haven't solved it. Because this was it, and a number of people commented to say, yeah, very clever puzzle, but I could have resolved this final situation here by considering this cell, rather than having to do all of the massive arithmetic involving the huge blue area in the top and the huge orange area in the bottom. Because the argument that was made was that if I made this square orange, this square where the cursor is at the moment, that would be impossible, because that would place a 6-cell orange region next to a 6-cell blue region, which couldn't be the case. But this is not right, because if I make this square orange, I don't know how to show that here, but I will try and do an O. Imagine that square was orange. It's not making a 6-cell orange region, because it's joining this W pentomino of orange to this Y pentomino of orange, making an 11-cell orange region, and a 6-cell blue region most certainly will not disambiguate that. So I think the only way to disambiguate it was to notice that the bottom region here, this 31-cell region of orange, was at the moment connected to a 31-cell blue region, which meant that this square had to be orange in order to ensure that two areas of the same size were not connected. What a finale that is. Anyway, I just wanted to clear that up. I hope you don't mind. Now, let's get back to Lucy's puzzle, where I can read you the rules. Simple rules today. We've got normal Sudoku rules apply. We've got along thermometers, digits must increase from the bulb end. So if you've never seen a thermo Sudoku before, very straightforward. Basically, it's a bit like mercury going up through the thermometer. So this cell here, let's make it a 3. As you move up the thermometer, this square would have to be higher than 3. It doesn't have to be 4, it could be 5. You know, it could be, so it doesn't have to go up in steps of 1. Then this square just has to be higher than 5. Let's make that 8, and then that could be 9, and that would be a perfectly valid way of filling the thermometer. So that's how thermos work. Now also you can see we've got some circles with digits in the grid. Digits in circles must appear in the 4 cells surrounding the circle. So we've seen a few of these puzzles recently. I really like them. And that's what it's telling us, is that within those 4 cells there, we must see a 4 and we must see a 6. Within these 4 cells, we must see a 3, a 5 and an 8. And that's all there is to it. So do have a go. The way to play, of course, is to click the link under the video. Now I get to play. Let's get cracking. Now I think if I was Mark, by this point I would have fully pencil marked all of the thermometers. I'm not doing that. I refuse. I am going to look at the circles first. So I can see I've got common 8s, look, between those two sets of 2 by 2. So what does that tell us? Well, it tells us something about where 8 goes in column 7. Because if I know that the 8 in box 3 must be in one of those 4 squares, it's definitely not in those 3. Similarly down here, if the 8 is in one of those 4 squares, it's not in these 3. So where does the 8 go in column 7 of the grid? It's got to be in one of the, well, actually it's got to be in one of these 3, but it can't be on the bulb of the thermometer. Because if it's on the bulb of the thermometer, remember this has to be higher. Well, this could be 9, but then what on earth am I going to put in the blades of the scissors here? I'll have to put in 10 and 11. That's not allowed. So that's not 8. And we lock an 8 into one of 2 places. Now, you see there's no commonality there. And although there's a common 6 between those two 2 by 2s, these aren't in a line. They aren't aligned in the same rows, or aren't necessarily aligned in the same rows. So I'm not sure. We can do 8s again in these 2. Ah, right, okay. So we're going to actually be able to lock an 8 into one of these 3 cells, which I bet the Goodliff followers, I bet that's not one of your early pencil marks. Let's look at this. So 8s again, we can ask where 8 goes in column 1 this time. It's not in those 3 squares, it's not in these 3 squares, so it's in one of these 3. It can't be in the bulb of the thermometer again, because 9, 10, 11 is not possible. So the 8 gets locked into row 4 and row 6. And now we can run exactly the same trick that we've just been running, but this time on row 5. Where does the 8 go in row 5? Well, we know it's not in those 3 squares, because we know the 8 in box 4 is definitely in one of those 2 positions, so it's not here. It's not here, so it must be in one of these 3 squares. Now, I accept that that is not that useful, but it still gives me pleasure to put it in. Now, where should we look next? We've got... I know you're laughing, Mark, but I'm not fully pencil marking these yet. I'm still going to think about it for a moment or 2 longer before I give in. The crosses of the scissors are interesting. Oh, yeah, okay. Yeah, let's look at that, because the crosses... Okay, yeah, let's highlight the crosses. The reason I think the crosses are interesting is because of what happens on the thermometers after the crosses. I don't know what the official name for like the joint of a pair of scissors is. But what I can see is that whatever I put into these crosses, the blades of the scissors in each case are all in the same box of the Sudoku. Now that means that these yellow squares in each box, these squares for example, they all have to be different digits. Now if they all have to be different digits, that means this square can't be as high as 6, for example, because if we try 6 into this square, what are we going to put? What are the 4 different digits that are higher than 6 we can put in the yellow squares? Well, there aren't 4 different digits. Well, there are 4 different digits that are higher than 6, but not that are valid Sudoku entries. So we could go 7, 8, 9, but then this square would have to be at least 10, and that doesn't work. So this square is not 6. So the maximum you can put in the crosses is 5. And the minimum you can put in the crosses, because none of them are on the bulbs. Yeah, okay, that's interesting as well. There's definitely something going on with the bulbs, but let's just deal with whether this square can be a 2. Can you ever put a 2 in the crosses? Well, no, because all the bulbs are in the same row. So if you do try and put a 2 in a cross, you've got to put 1 in both of those squares. And that isn't allowed either. So all of the crosses have to be 3, 4 or 5. Now, yeah, this is really clever setting. This is really clever because, yeah, look at row 5 of the grid. I've got 4 bulbs. So these 4 bulbs all have to be different digits because they're in the same row of the grid. But they also have to be lower than the highest digit I can put into these 2 squares. Well, the highest digit is 5. They all have to be lower than 5. So they have to be the digits 1, 2, 3 and 4. And I think the same is going to be true in the central box, isn't it? Because if I know, and I do know, that these 4 digits are all lower than 5, and they're all different, they are 1, 2, 3 and 4. Now, that's really, really beautiful, but I'm not actually just... No, hang on, we can do better. We can do better. That's why these 4s are given, look. We get a 3. Yeah, let's deal with this. So now, look at boxes 2 and 8. We know the 4 in those boxes is in the yellow squares, so it's not in the cross of the scissors, which gives us a 3, 5 pair, which means 5 now. Where does 5 go in box 5? It can't be in these cells, so it has to be in those cells. It also means one of these has to be a 3, and whichever one that is will have to have a 1 and a 2 beneath it in the bulbs of its sort of scissor handles. Oh, this is weird. So if this was a 1 and a 2, this would therefore be a 3 and a 4, and this would have to be a 5. If it's the other way round and you had a 1, 2 here, you'd have a 3, 4 here, and this would have to be a 5. So you always get a 5 in one of those two. Yeah, you always get a 5 in one of those 2 crosses, but we already knew that actually. Because we know this is a 1, 2, 3, 4 quadruple, therefore one of them is a 4. Whichever one is a 4 will have to have a 5 above it on the thermometer. So I've managed to prove, or go round in a circle there. This is really quite fascinating though. Now, okay, where does 2 go? Where does 2 go in this group of cells? 2 can't go on the blade here because this square cannot be lower than 2. So 2 must be in those cells. And that's almost bobbins worthy, isn't it? Because that really does nothing. 4 could be there if this is 3. 4, 3, then 1, 2. That would place a 4 there. That could work with a 4, 6 up here. 1 in this, yeah, 1 in box, this foursome here can't be on the blade, so 1's definitely there. Oh dear, I think I've ground to a halt here. But I'm sure you agree this was by far the best way of approaching the puzzle. Although I do accept I'm reaching a point where it looks like I've pencil marked a lot of these thermometers. 3, 4, 5. Maybe you can do something with, if this was 3 and 4, this would be 5. Got it. I've got it. This is, it's absolutely, it's so simple. It's so simple, and yet it is beautiful to me, this. It is beautiful. This cell is I think, important. So the question we should ask is, can this cell be 4 or 5? Can this square be 4 or 5? The answer is no. But why can't it be 4 or 5? Well, look, if you put a 5 in here, you know there's a 5 in one of those 4 squares. And now that 5 can't be in those 2 squares because of Sudoku. So it has to be on the same thermometer as the 5 here. Well, last time I checked, 5 was not a higher number than 5. So that's not going to work. What about if this is 4? Well, it's the same logic. That puts 4 on the thermometer, and 4 is also not higher than 4. So you can't put a 4 or a 5 in here. Now, if you can't put 4 or 5 in here, you're only left with the option of putting 3 in here. And that obviously means these 2 squares have got to be a 1-2 pair. Those 2 squares are not 3 anymore. These 2 squares are now a 3-4 pair, which means this square has to be higher than 4, which means it's 5. That's going to do all sorts to the blades of that pair of scissors. 5 by Sudoku also now has to be in one of these. Oopsie daisy. 5 also has to be in one of those 2 cells. 4s. Oh, yeah, and we can now resolve. Yes, we can now resolve the 3-5 pair, because if this square is a 3, these will be a 1-2 pair, and there's nowhere then to put a 3 in this quadruple. This would be a 1-2-4 quadruple. Well, the problem with a quadruple that only involves 3 different digits is that you're going to end up repeating one of the digits, which breaks the puzzle. So this can't be the 3, this is now the 5, this is the 3, this is now a 1-2 pair, which means these 2 squares are a 3-4 pair, and that's... Oh no, that's okay. Therefore we've got 3-4 pairs into these squares, which means 4 is in one of these 2 positions where it joins its friend the 5. So now this square can't be 8, which means there's an 8 here, an 8 here by Sudoku, unwinding our earlier X-wing. It means we've got 1-2, 1-2, so we must have a 1-2 pair in box Jobby Job here. The official name for box Jobby Job is box 6. Now, got the 1s there. Oh yeah, hang on, look, and now I should be thinking, I think, about these 2 5s, because 5 in the cross of a pair of scissors means these squares and these squares have, I can see that's going to lead to a quadruple. These have to be 6, 7, 8 and 9. And we can probably tidy up these as well, because you can't put 9 partially along a thermometer. So none of those squares can be 9. And you can't put a 6 at the sharp end of the scissors, because then you'd have to put a digit lower than 6 between 5 and 6, which you can't put 5.5 on the thermometer. So now, oh, lovely. Now the 2-4 pair comes into its own, because this is definitely doesn't include a 4. So these two squares now are a 2-4 pair. Which, that's nice, because now where does the 4 go up here? It can't go in those two squares because of the domino with the 4 down there. So the 4, oh look, this is really nice as well. The 4 is on the blades, but not only do we know it's on the blades and therefore resolving this 3-4 pair. In fact, let's do that first. The 4 and the 3 get resolved. That plonks a 3 here and a 1 here by Sudoku. This, oh my goodness, 1 and 2 get resolved. 2. Let's follow the 2s through. You can't put 2 on the blade above a 3, so this square is a 2. And I still haven't used the fact that I have noticed, I know you're surprised about this, but I have noticed that this square can't be a 4, because if that's a 4, this square would have to be a 3.5, and that's not possible. So we know the 4's there. That means there's a 4 in one of those. What 4 in one of these two squares because of this quadruple. That means there's a 4 in one of those squares. Now we did an awful lot of stuff there, so I should just try and follow through on my pencil marks, I think. So I did do stuff with the 2s, I did do stuff with the 4s. I've looked at the 6. I didn't really look at this quadruple, did I? So this is a 6, 7, 8, 9 quadruple. So the 8 in this box now is a bit restricted, look. It's got to go into the bottom row. Right, okay, well the thing I can see this 3 as well. There's so much stuff going on here. Right, so 3 has to be in one of those squares because of this 3. And 3 can't therefore be on the blade because it's got the same size as this 3, and this is a thermometer, so you have to increase. So the 3 goes up here. 3 in box 3, therefore you can see it's in one of those cells and now must be in one of those two cells exactly. Now the 8s here rule an 8 out of these two cells. Oh. And because these can't be 6 either, they become a 7-9 pair, which means they can't include a 7 in those squares, so these become a 6-8 pair, which rules out an 8 from those two squares, which makes these a 7-9 pair, so we can rule out 7 from those squares. And we've got an 8 here. So this square has to be a 6. That square has to be an 8. An 8, well, this therefore has to be 9 because it has to be higher than 8, which makes this square 7. And that all felt like quite good progress. I think, maybe. Can we go any further than with our good progress? Yeah, we can. There's a 1 here, so this square's a 1. Do we know more now than... There's got to be a 9 in box 6 in one of those cells, so there's a 9 in one of these 3 positions. The 5 in this quadruple now is fixed by this 5 over onto the right side of it, which places a 5 down here. 5. 5's now in one of those 3 squares. 3. Oh no, 3's in one of those squares. We've already got that. But that's okay. That's okay. This 3 is locking a 3 out of that square. So this, yeah, we need 2, 3, and 4 to complete this box. In fact, let's just label that up. This is 2, 3, and 4, but this 3 rules a 3 out of that cell, which means there is a 3 down here, which means there is not a 3 here, and therefore there is a 3 here. And Oh, lovely. Lovely. Look, now we've got 3's in one of those 4 squares and 3's in one of these 2 squares. So the question we can ask now is, where does the 3 go in, well, there's a couple of ways of asking this. Where does the 3 go in column 7 is perhaps the easiest question. It can't go there and it can't go here. So it must be in this square. The other way of asking the question is to say, how many 3's are there in this puzzle in column 8 and 9? So if we looked at the finished solution, how many 3's are we going to find in columns 8 and 9? Well, it's not a trick question. There's going to be exactly 1 3 somewhere in column 8 and exactly 1 3 somewhere in column 9. So there are exactly 2 3's in column 8 and column 9. Now we know one of them is here because it's in this quadruple, and we know one of them is here because it's in this domino. So if I was to make this square a 3, that would mean there were 3 3's in column 8 and column 9, and that is not possible. So this square is a 4, this square is a 3. That 4 is ruling a 4 out from that cell at the top. And this square at the bottom, which places a 4 in one of these 2 squares, which means this square is not a 4, and the 4 moves over into that position. 3's. Okay. What now? 5's. 5 is in one of those squares, and it's in one of these 2 squares. So it's the same logic again. It's so well put together, this puzzle. It's been so carefully crafted. Each of these sort of X-wing patterns keeps occurring sort of in a linear fashion. So now we can ask the question, is it possible this is 5? Well, the answer is no, because it would be a third 5 in column 1 and column 2. So this square is going to have to be 4, which is huge actually, because that 4 places this 4 by Sudoku. So now there's a 4. There's got to be a 4 in one of those 2 positions. And we've got it. It's again, it's the same thing. Where does 4 now go in box 7 and box 9 of the puzzle? It's there. The 4. The answer is I don't know, but I don't care, because it's definitely in 2 of these 4 squares are the digit 4. So again, where's the 4 going in row 8 of the grid? Well, it can't go here because the 4's in one of those 2. It can't go there. So the only place it can go is here, which gives us a 4, gives us a 2, gives us a 2 up there, gives us a 3, gives us a 4. That 3 is nice. That plonks a 3 into that square by Sudoku. I feel like these 1's and 2's must be resolved. Don't know. This 4 is seeing that cell, so we can place the 4 in box 7. This is a 2-5 pair, look, by Sudoku. Those 2 squares are 7 and 9. These squares are 1, 6 and 8. That one's not 8. Oh, but we can place the 6 again using X-wing technology, because there's a 6 in one of these 4 squares and a 6 in one of those 3 squares. And again, I don't know where the 6 is, but I don't need to know. All I have to do is to be able to count up to 2. How many 6's are there in column 2 and column 3? There are 2, and I know they go in these squares. So I can't add more 6's in these positions. These are not 6. This is 6. This is a 1-8 pair. Let's get rid of the corner pencil marking and try and make more progress. So I feel like I'm missing something about... Oh, 8. I can just place 8 in the top by Sudoku, look, because I know the 8's. The 8 in box 3 is definitely in one of those squares. These 8's mean it must therefore be in column 8. That's remarkably unhelpful, actually. We've got 6, 7, 9 triples in those sort of triominoes, look. To complete their boxes, they've got to be 6, 7 and 9. 6, 7, 9 triple in column 2. And in column 8. That can't be 9 though, so the 9 is definitely in one of those two positions, which means it's not. So there's a 9 there, this is not 9. 6, 7. The 9, this is where the 6 lives in box 4, so the 6 is not there. Oh, okay, so now we can do 6 technology, can't we? Because there's a 6 in one of these 3 squares, or one of these 4 squares, but the 6 is penciled there, so it's not this one. So there's a 6. Ah, lovely. There's a 6 in one of these 2 squares. Which one is it? Which one of these has a 6 in it? Well, if we try it and put it in the top square, that square now has to be between 3 and 6. Well, it can't be 4 and it can't be 5, so it has no value. So this is not 6. The 6 must go there, which makes that one a 7, I think. That makes that one a 7. One of these 2 squares now has to be an 8, look, because of the clue, which places an 8 here, which is massive. That 8 is massive because that locks the 8 there and the 6 here, which means that must be 9. That must be 7 now. This is not 8 anymore. In fact, 8 is the digit in the middle of the grid, which is a bit of a surprise. 6 now has to be in our 3, 5, 8. So this becomes, yeah, this is a 5, 6 pair, which means this square is a 1 or a 2 to complete the column, and that's a 2. So we know that's a 1, that's a 2, that's a 1. This is a brilliant puzzle, isn't it? It is just a brilliant puzzle. 6 now. This 6 is moving the 6 into one of those 2 squares where it joins its friend the 1. So the 1 and the 6 are friends. These 2 squares now have to be 7 and 9 together, and there's a 7 over here. So 7 and 9 go in, 9 and 6 go in. These 2 squares are a 5, 6 pair, I think, which we can do. 6 and 5 go in. That's a 7, therefore. By Sudoku, this becomes a 9. Therefore, this is a 6. The 7 and the 9 get resolved at the bottom. Slightly surprising. We haven't. This just doesn't all completely collapse. We can do these 2 squares because they're on the blade of a thermometer, and we know that they are 5 and 7, so we know the order. 5 must be lower on the thermometer than 7, so that plonks the 5 and the 6 in. That 6 is very nice. It gives us the 6 and the 1. These 2 squares have got to be 2, yep, 2 and 9. Therefore, scanning across here, we need a 5. That 5 fixes the 5 and the 2 and the 1. This square I can do because it's a 9, just completing the column. This needs a 7 in it somewhere, so that becomes a 7, that becomes an 8. The 8 and the 1 go in. The 1 goes in at the top. That should be a 2, and if I haven't made an error, that's a 9. That's all of the puzzle filled in. Let's click check. Yes, that's how to solve all of the puzzle. Lucy, I loved that. That was really superb. Absolutely superb. Every single clue had been thought about by the setter. And the logic was just lovely. This particularly I really enjoyed. The fact that this has to be a 3, just very, very clever setting. Let me know in the comments how you got on, and do try the puzzle hunt. And thanks so much for watching. Back later with another edition of Cracking the Cryptic.